I'm Lucy Kennedy from the League of Women Voters of Central Berkshires, and thank you all for coming. We hope this will be an informative session. And we're aware that there's a big event in Pittsfield that's at 1:15, so we will try to accommodate getting both the talk and the refreshments done by noon, so you should be able to give the candidates your full attention, and we look forward to hearing from all of them. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that does not endorse or support particular candidates. We also hope you will become members. We have forms out in the lobby or on our website, League of Women Voters of Central Berkshires. There's also a box for donations, and we're not proud. We need all the help we can get, so thank you very much. And I have many people to thank for this event. In particular, our partner, who's been wonderful, the Berkshire Eagle, and Fred Rutberg, the president and publisher, is here, as well as Heather, and I think some other staffers from the Eagle. So they've been a wonderful partner, so thanks to the Eagle. We also want to thank Greg Briganti, principal of Lee High School, who provided us with this lovely facility. And then I want to thank my fellow volunteers, Ramel Pulitzer, who's our president, Amy Cooper, Susan Morris, Betty Farbman, Mose Olnick, Jan Hendershot, and Lynn Posner. And I also, thank you. I need to get in a plug for the main thing we do at League of Women Voters, which is to make sure everyone registers and votes. So here are some, before you turn your phones off, here are some dates for you to note in your phones. September 3rd is the state Democratic primary. And 3 of our participants, Lee, Jamie, and Patrick, are on the Democratic primary ballot. Mary Beth Mitz is not, because she is unaffiliated. She will be on the general election ballot, which is November 3rd. So please mark those dates, and be sure to check that you're registered. You could go to the Secretary of the Commonwealth on the website to check, or talk to your town clerk. The voter registration deadline is August 24th for the September 3rd primary, and October 26th for the November general election. We will have refreshments after the event with an opportunity for you to talk one-on-one with the candidates. So please join us if you can. I think that's it. And I'm thrilled that you're all here. And I'm now going to turn it over to our moderator, Kathy Campbell, from the Amherst League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Lucy, and welcome everybody to today's candidates forum for the 3rd Berkshire District. Currently an open seat. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh.
I don't think your mic is on.
Is that better? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to hold it. It's making a lot of noise. Thank you. Okay, let's try again. Welcome to today's candidate forum for the candidates for the 3rd Berkshire District. The candidates will introduce themselves shortly, so I am not going to. To the candidates, I want to say that, which you already know, you will have 2 minutes for your opening statements, and then 90 seconds for each of the questions that will be posed, and 2 minutes for the closing statements at the end. The timekeeper is sitting right there in the front row. When there's half a minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a sign on the yellow side, and when you come to the end of your speaking time, she'll hold up the red side. Please wrap up quickly when you see this red side. So, for the audience, we will begin with a series of questions prepared in advance, which the candidates have had an opportunity to review. But we're anxious to include some questions from you as well. Please write your question on the index card you picked up at the door, or raise your hand if you need an index card and somebody will come and bring one by. Or you can ask for another one if you have more than one question. And then hold your completed card up in the air and someone will come by and pick it up. A panel of league members will be reviewing the questions for legibility, clarity, and applicability to all candidates. That last point is important. All questions must be addressed to all the candidates. We will use as many of the questions as time allows, and we may combine similar ones. Please turn off your cell phones and beeping watches now. And finally, I ask you that you please hold your applause until the end. This time belongs to our candidates, so let's listen to what they have to say. We're ready now for opening statements. The order of these statements was determined by lot, and the first one will be by Lee Davis.
Oh, you're gonna, okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Berkshire Eagle, and the town of Lee for hosting this important event. 17 years ago, I was grounded in a Berkshire snowstorm, fell in love with this community, and made it my home. I took a leap of faith, and the community embraced me. As a solo parent to 3 children, I did the Berkshire Shuffle, balancing multiple jobs to support my family. I volunteered for hospice care in the Berkshires after advocating for my own parents who passed away in my childhood home in DC. Public service runs in my family. My dad was a Black Republican and the architect of the Martin Luther King federal holiday. My mom was a white Democrat who worked alongside Peace Corps founder Sargent Shriver for more than 20 years. Our conversations around the dinner table had a big impact on me. They have informed me and given me the values that I passed on to my daughter, who was a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy. After years of volunteering, I was elected to the Great Barrington Finance Committee, then to the Select Board. I am now in my 4th year as vice chair. I also chair the Housing Subcommittee. I believe that housing and health care are a human right. I believe that seniors and veterans have the right to stay in their homes and that they love and support. I believe in racial and gender equality, and that we must mitigate the climate crisis immediately. I believe that government should be transparent and accountable. 2 years into my first term as a select board member, I fought pending legislation that would have taken away local control from residents, opening the door for large-scale commercial horse racing in Great Barrington. Not only did I spot the loophole in the bill, but I testified at the State House to remove it, standing up for residents' rights, ensuring that they had a say in the decisions that impacted them. No more backroom deals. No one understands this more than the residents here in Lee. Just down the road in West Center Street, I worked for 2 years to rehome displaced residents and secure funding for the $80 million redevelopment of the historic Eagle Mill. I do this because I care.
Yeah. Okay.
I ask you to join me, and I ask for your vote on September 3rd.
Mr. White.
My name is Patrick White, and I'm running to be your next state representative. We need to bring back middle-class jobs and promote the Berkshires for remote work. We need better child care and elder care. How about we do that? For half a century, we've let cell phone companies invest in service in eastern Massachusetts, while many of us can't get a single bar of service here at home. We rely too much on property taxes and not enough on tourist taxes. How about we fix that? We need housing. Let's prioritize housing for local families and local seniors. Let's prioritize home repairs and energy efficiency for you and your neighbors. Let's take care of the folks who actually live here. How about we do that? We need to recruit more doctors, and we need to hold corporations accountable for substandard water and for the cancer-causing disaster that is the Houstonic River. We have the data at BMC. We know the prevalence of rare cancers and other diseases, and we can trace responsibility. For the outrages, back to, how about we do that? Forget it. My name is Patrick White. I was born here, I'll be buried here, and in between, I've seen the world over. These Berkshire towns have some of the nicest and kindest and toughest people you will ever meet. Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. I lived for over 2 decades in Boston, founding companies and creating jobs. I have the contacts in Boston to do the job on day one. For 20 years, Stockbridge tried to figure out how to save Old Town Hall. As the chief financial officer of the local nonprofit that bought the building, I got it done. I was instrumental as the chair of the Stockbridge Select Board in efforts to preserve 350 acres in Stockbridge. I prioritized the repair of every bridge in Stockbridge. How about we do more of that? I may not be the best talker, as you just saw, but I believe I will be the best doer. You send me to Boston, I will fight for you and your community. You send me to Boston, and together we will get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Minacci.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I am Jamie Manassi, and I am here to tell you who I am. I am a Stockbridge resident. I'm the mother of 3. I was a single mom. I raised 3 children. They are all graduated. My son is in the military in Georgia. So who am I? So I am a hardworking member of our town. I'm on many committees and boards. I started on the BRTA advisory committee because public transportation is so necessary. And in Stockbridge, we have a really hard time with Route 21 to get people. And so why I ran was because I felt this position doesn't open very often, and this would be my opportunity. Have I done great things? No, but I have raised my children. I've been a part of my community. I have lived here my entire life, except when I left for university, which I studied public health and education. I have a double degree. I worked in a hospital in Michigan. I did my internship. I won a national award for research on health insurance. I came back because my mother was ill, and she passed when I was 24, but I stayed and I raised my children, and I've seen the ups and downs of Berkshire County. I remember when North Street was thriving, and we had a department store with an elevator and a doorman, and we no longer have that. We have many other issues that we need to deal with, and I hope that I can bring my hardworking ethics. I come from hardworking people. My grandfather was a business owner, so I did have the luxury of having, the comfort of my grandparents' life. So that is it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Nitz.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us this morning. My name is Mary Beth Mitz, and I would like your vote on November 5th for state rep. I am the daughter of middle-class parents from West Hartford, Connecticut. My brother and I were raised in the Catholic faith, and our family valued education and a strong work ethic. Our talk around the dinner table consisted of doing our best in school, keeping busy with sports and after-school activities while both of our parents worked, and finding summer work to save for college. I was the first in my family to graduate from college thanks to my parents' vision and skillful saving. I want to say that my mother's here this morning. It's her 85th birthday, and she didn't have the chance to go to college. Her parents thought it was more important that her brother get a good education. She was offered 4 years of a local Catholic college or 1 year at Katie Gibbs in Boston, and she took Katie Gibbs. Good going, Mom. So after college and studying at the University of Maryland, I worked as a presidential management intern in the federal government. I had rotational assignments at the Hartford HUD field office, Fannie Mae, and the Senate Budget Committee, steeping myself in housing and community development work. I met my fiancé Kevin in Washington, D.C. while he was in the Navy. So I pivoted to financial analysis at the U.S. Navy and shipbuilding and conversion, which allowed me to continue to work after we married and moved throughout the country and the world. After Pentagon City, Virginia, and stints at 2 Marine Corps air stations in California as comptroller and deputy comptroller, I started a firm focused on housing programs in Southern California, helping dozens of municipalities administer these programs. We moved to Lenox with 3 kids. I've been on the Lenox PTO, a member of the Lenox School Committee for 9 years, a select board member for 9 years, and I'm very familiar with the nonprofit sector, having worked at Shakespeare and Company, Williams College, and Mass Hire Berkshire Workforce Board. For the past 23 years, I have absorbed the full measure of being a Berkshire resident. I know I can be an effective state rep, and I ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you very much. Now we have a series of prepared questions which were sent to the candidates in advance, and the order of responses is going to vary. Please remember that we are taking audience questions later. That'll start in about 25 to 30 minutes, so please submit yours if you haven't done so already. The first question deals with economic development. Despite a temporary increase during the COVID pandemic, Berkshire's county population continues to slide, especially among younger generations. The Berkshire Regional Planning Commission projects the recent census of 129,000 will drop below 100,000 in 20 years. Despite a vibrant tourism and second home economy, many locals have to work 2 or even 3 jobs to survive. As our state representative, what would you do to support economic development with viable opportunities for all working age adults, including a culturally diverse population? Ms. Minasi, would you start off?
Sure, thank you. So, economic development is one of the things I've been talking about ever since we began our debates and our being in. So I believe that infrastructure, not just our roads and bridges, but we need broadband. There's a lot of towns like in New Marlborough and Mill River and other small towns that don't have connectivity, and they are not connected, and they are not prospering. We also need our roads and bridges. Every town I visited, there's a road out, a bridge out, if not, and culverts need to be replaced because of climate. And I think that if we could bring climate tech and AI, and if we could incentivize this with tax incentive, grants, loans, some way to bring, there is talent here, and there are people that want to work and work hard, and they should be paid well. And I see the time. Massachusetts has also been the hub for innovation, and numerous research institutions and tech companies have, want to come to Massachusetts, but usually on the other end of the state. So if we could bring them to our end of the state, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, would you continue?
So there is a $2.8 billion economic development bill in conference committee right now, and it's moving through the State House, and we need to make sure that funding comes to the Berkshires. Some of the items in there that I'm particularly interested are for $400 million for climate technology and bonding authorizations, and $400 million in mass works infrastructure, so that will help us build our water mains, our housing, our bridges. So we need to make sure that money actually comes from Boston into the Berkshires. We need to address the brain drain. We need to invest in housing, which basically is a foundation for our workforce. We need to make sure that we have broadband and public transportation. We need to ensure that our workers are working, that they're housed, and that they have the tools that they need to succeed. We need to develop workforce development training. I'm thinking about BCC and its nursing programs. We need to invest in green, regenerative, sustainable models, and we need to look at bioremediation and other innovative technologies to address the climate crisis.
Thank you. Mr. White?
This is the abridged version. I could talk on the subject for an hour. I know how to create jobs. I've created them in the multiple companies I led. I'm going to give you 3 examples of how we might approach this challenge here. 1, we need to expand the office of the Executive Office of Economic Development. Currently, we have only 2 folks working for the state whose job is to convince companies to locate in Massachusetts. We need a whole lot more. They are competing against other states, and we are outgunned. Often these states have 10 times the folks that we have. Let's fix that. 2, we need to diversify outside of tourism. We've done a great job promoting tourism after G left, but that's very different from the types of industries that we need to focus on now. For example, there's over $1 billion in the state's economic development bill. How about we subsidize these jobs? How about as we subsidize these jobs with your tax dollars, we include a requirement that they locate those jobs in Massachusetts. 3, we need to reform the state microloan programs that can provide up to $100,000 for an entrepreneur with less than 10 employees. If you want to grow or start a small business such as landscaping, electric, HVAC, and plumbing, that's one of the few ways ordinary folks can now afford to work and stay here. Finally, I will make it a personal priority. I know how to speak the language of startup CEOs. I was one. I will make it a personal priority to be part of the pitch team that closes deals for the Berkshires. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Mitz?
So yes, what do transportation, affordable housing, healthcare, broadband, and a livable wage all have in common? They contribute to the difficulty recruiting and retaining an effective workforce in every industry in the Berkshires. There's a quarterly economic development practitioners group of about 45 people who meet in the Berkshires to discuss regional issues and opportunities, share resources, and collaborate and innovate to improve our Berkshire economy through the lens of their individual and collective work. As state rep, I'd be part of this group, and I'm pleased to say that for some time now, we've had funding for job training programs that align with high-demand sectors like advanced manufacturing, healthcare and wellness, and tourism. Mass Hire Berkshire Career Center assists anyone in the county looking for job search assistance, career counseling, and training services. There are free training services for several sectors currently available in the Berkshires. There's a STEM pipeline funding that reaches into our schools with career pathway opportunities, supporting after-school programs, summer camps, and teacher training, critical to our young people in the region. Vocational ed programs received more funding this year to modernize facilities and curricula at places like McCann and Taconic. Adult basic education funding has been increased to support literacy, numeracy, and English language learning for adults. Along with that, employers are encouraged to help entry-level workers who commit to developing their skills with a ladder to a livable wage so they can afford to live in an apartment with a friend or a spouse and be able to make their rent, buy healthy food, pay their utilities, and save for retirement.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the second question. Berkshire County consists of 32 communities, each of which is struggling to support education, roads, bridges, water treatment, and more. The financial burden on taxpayers has resulted in apparent neglect by towns and the state over the years, including causing, for instance, bridge shutdowns in Great Barrington. What specific plans will you put in motion as state representative to quickly help rural 3rd Berkshire District municipalities with these burdens, including Berkshire County's aging and falling bridges, harmful public school funding laws that reduce reimbursements for school choice and deplete sending districts, and the very real threat to public health from slow ambulance response times and a looming ambulance deserts in some areas of the county. Mr. White, would you begin, please?
You're right. The problem is bordering on catastrophic. Towns need more help. In Stockbridge, I insisted we plan to repair every bridge when first elected in 2020. We've either completed every bridge or we have a plan in place to do so, every single bridge. On ambulance, I was part of the team that reached out to Lee, West Stockbridge, and Richmond and have active discussions on shared services and Smitty's hub and spoke model. It's not enough to talk the talk. You need leaders willing to do the hard work to get things done. I'm one of them. As for schools, I suggested to the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Administration over a year ago that we should pursue a donor campaign. Every dollar donated is a dollar saved by taxpayers. I understand infrastructure, but equally important, I understand how to finance it. I've been doing it for 5 years on a select board and 30 years before that as CFO or CEO of companies. Here's how we fix this. 1, make capital cheaper. We must expand the Clean Water Trust, which allows borrowing at 0 to 2%, to be available for more infrastructure projects like roads, bridges, schools, and housing. The state has $9 billion in reserves. Lowering borrowing costs makes a giant difference in the annual payments taxpayers must fund. 2, reduce the cost to repair bridges. Let's get standardized schematics in place so that every bridge doesn't need custom design and engineering. It costs a fortune, has created an entire cottage industry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White. Let's,
Oh, am I out?
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
you need to be watching the
All right.
timekeeper. Ms. Mitz, would you proceed?
Sure, thank you. As state rep, I would encourage towns to focus on putting their master plan to work, applying for Federal Infrastructure Act and Inflation Reduction Act funding to help improve local infrastructure. There are literally billions of dollars available. Governor Healy instituted an Office of Federal Funds at the state level to help with guidance on many grants that will be available to fund the roads, bridges, culverts, water and sewer infrastructure that need attention throughout our district. Public school funding has been improved with the passage of the fiscal '25 budget. School funding, circuit breaker, rural school aid, and regional transportation funding has all been increased in the fiscal '25 budget. Shared services are still going to have to be examined throughout the district. That conversation should and will continue. In April, Smitty gathered a task force, of which I am a part, to discuss assessing existing emergency medical service throughout our district. Our goal is to come up with a consensus that all 18 towns will work toward a solution that ensures mutual aid throughout the 3rd Berkshire District. Lennox has committed to this work. We need to recruit and retain EMTs and paramedics in rural areas by looking at scholarships, stipends, and loan forgiveness to get them educated quickly and safely. We need to be able to offer them a living wage and a reasonable long-term future in this career. If this task force can come up with a model, the next state rep will be responsible for getting funding through to fund this program design. Our rural mutual aid model for EMS might also be able to assist the 162 other rural communities in the state.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Our towns are in a crisis mode. We need a strong voice in Boston. We need to be unified. We need a regional approach to our infrastructure problems, to our bridges, to our water, to our roads. We need to reform an outdated and equitable school choice policy. We need to look at Chapter 90 in reforming our roads and our bridges, where we get our funding from the state, and we need to look at Chapter 70 school funding for our schools. We have a crisis that needs us to come together as leaders and as advocates for our towns. We need to support municipal efficiencies. We need better training for our municipal staff. We need better grant writing and tactical assistance and regionalization. We need to support our staff. There's billions of dollars out there that we need to tackle and we need to tap into. But we only need that, and we can only do that if our staff have the tools that they need. We need to regionalize the EMS and support legislation and bring the resources in addressing the EMS issues and the crisis and breaking point that we see ourselves. We have ambulance deserts, and we have a task force that's being put together thanks to the work of Smitty Pignatelli. I'm on that hub and spoke task force, and I ensure that I will move forward and continue the good work.
Thank you. Ms. Manussi.
So we all agree that we need infrastructure and we need to support. We need regionalization of services, our fire, our ambulances, even our schools. And I know it was tried in southern Berkshire with Berkshire Hills, and it didn't go through, but we have to keep at it until people realize how important it is that we share resources. We have an aging population, and we do need ambulance services, and our schools, we don't need big schools, but we do need schools that have the trades, because this is where students can alternatively get a job. Also, we need to support public transportation and microtransit, because in a rural community, we need to be able to travel over long roads. And we need to upgrade our water and sewer systems to handle all of these storms and our climate changes. And we need to work on renewable energy projects and grid modernization for our growing demands. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Housing. In the 3rd Berkshire District and across Massachusetts, families are struggling to fund and purchase starter homes. Seniors are unable to downsize, and affordable housing wait lists number in the thousands. In Berkshire County, the housing affordability gap, which measures the shortfall between what people make and rent and home ownership costs, was $741 for renters and over $53,000 for home buyers as of 2022, according to the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. To help bridge this gap, Massachusetts needs 200,000 new housing units, and Berkshire County likely needs at least several hundred, if not 1,000 of those. As our state representative, what legislation will you support or introduce to address the housing affordability crisis here in the 3rd Berkshire District? Ms. Mitz, would you start with this one?
Sure. Well, if the housing bond bill passes, there's going to be at least $6 billion in bond financing available for several programs targeted to rural districts, targeted to Commonwealth home builder programs to help with the homeownership crisis. I've been active in Lenox over the last 7 years, leading a charge on a 65-unit mixed income development that's in site prep on Route 7 and 20, as well as supporting a second 68-unit mixed income project a mile north of Brushwood, currently in a mini funding round at EOHLC. That would be 133 of the 1,000 units we are looking for in the Berkshires, 13% of the new units we'd like to see. And as a member of our housing trust, we've helped over 17 households in the past 10 years with down payment assistance to move into Lenox to work and go to these schools. Governor Healy just approved $3.3 million in federal funds through the state block grant program going to 7 of the 18 towns in our district to improve and preserve at least 41 existing homes for full-time Berkshire residents. It's going to be very important to support infill homeownership options moving forward. The housing bond bill will support ADUs by right in residential districts. However, the cost to connect to water and sewer or install additional Title V septic, even on existing residential parcels, is significant. If hookups for ADUs can be discounted by municipalities in hopes of adding additional ratepayers, that may be part of the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Minasi?
So housing. I was recently on a Zoom with the Housing Secretary, Augustus, and one thing that he said, and I wanted to say, is all housing decisions are made locally. And he said, go participate in your own local town government. Go to planning boards, zoning meetings, go become a selectman. So, we do need housing, and we have aging people. One of the other things that we could look at is empty nesters. People that have already raised their children could downsize, but we need housing for them to downsize too. So then families could overtake their homes. We need ADUs. We need zoning changes. So maybe duplexes. Reconvert old buildings, such as in South Hadley and Westfield and Holyoke. They've made apartments out of old brick buildings. Can we change old school buildings into, housing? But it is a complicated, and we do need housing. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Sure. They say I talk too fast, but clearly I need to talk faster today. Housing is a top priority if we want to repopulate the Berkshires. Let's talk about how we proceed. One, as I said before, make capital cheaper. Lowering borrowing costs makes a giant difference in the annual payments for housing we build. Two, for low-income rentals, let's get our fair share of Section 8 vouchers. That's a program where the state pays the rent. We currently get only about 20% of the statewide per district average. Let's change that. By pairing more Section 8 with more units like ADUs, we can build risk-free housing options for folks in South County. Three, we need to focus on home ownership. My parents bought a house in Stockbridge in their early 20s. That's nearly impossible now. If we want families to raise their kids here, we're going to have to make big down payment assistance programs available. The only way I know to do that is to fund this through tourism-related fees. Right now, tourists pay the town 6% for staying here. Other areas of Massachusetts get 8 to 9%. While we're at it, let's look at tickets for events. 39 states charge a fee when people buy a ticket. We don't here in Massachusetts. How about we fix that? If we'd been doing that at Tanglewood, we would have raised over $25 million in the last 25 years. You know, and I believe that in the next 25 years, we have to look at new and creative ways to fund housing without impacting middle-class property tax payers here in the Berkshires. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
I am a director at Construct, and I'm also the chair of the Housing Subcommittee in Great Barrington. I'm also one Berkshire Board Director and on the Berkshire Blueprint 2.0. So I have very detailed experience in housing. I've also testified twice for the Affordable Homes Act, which is the Governor's Act that's making its way through the State House. I'm looking at adaptive reuse of properties. The Affordable Homes Act is going to bring 40,000 properties online. We actually need 200,000 properties. So in addition to new development, we should be looking at what we actually have to protect our landscape. One program that I work closely with is the Attorney General's Abandoned Home Receivership Program. And basically what this does is it rehab distresses and abandoned properties in neighborhoods and sells them affordably for qualified buyers through a lottery. So all these blighted properties, we can actually make use of them and bring them back on stream. I'm looking at the home share model that's used in Vermont that matches seniors with those looking for affordable housing. I'm looking at the intergenerational co-living model such as Windflower, which I helped acquire for Construct, and housing rehab programs that use community block grants to provide forgivable loans at low interest rates. So again, rehab and adaptive rehab. I'm also the director of development, or I was, for Eagle Mill, which is just down the road, and we're bringing 145 units on stream in a historic paper mill. So we have the housing here. We just need to put the investment and energy in the housing.
Thank you. Last question of the prepared questions, so I hope we have some audience questions coming quickly. The rest of river cleanup, removing PCBs from the Housatonic River, will have an impact on the 3rd Berkshire District. As the planning and work move forward, how will you use your office and work with stakeholders in affected towns to address impacts on transportation, recreation, quality of life, and property values? How will you navigate this complicated problem amongst the various constituencies and advance a final solution? Ms. Minassi, would you start?
Yes, thank you. So this is a very complicated issue, as we all know, and some are more, it's more familiar, especially people of Lee. So there was an Edge article recently about some cleanups like at Love Canal. And we know all around the country there has been dumps placed. And it is so hard because what do we do with the PCBs? And we don't want it here, but do we really want to send it somewhere else? Are they less fortunate enough to take our pollutants? It is a travesty. And but our river needs to be clean. I've been here my whole life, and this pollutant has been in the rivers. And I think by cleaning it, it does help, and maybe we can help mitigate the transportation by using rail. I remember a select board meeting in Great Barrington and a woman whose father was a scientist from Monsanto, and he talked about that they already bake into the cost of things the damages, so they know. I mean, the scientists and the corporations know, so hopefully we can get this done and the least harm for all. And I lived in Michigan, and I drove through Flint, and Dow Chemical was there, and we all know what happened to the people in Flint with their water. So I think it's always, the solutions are long-reaching, or take a long time. Thank you.
Mr. White?
I haven't waited to get elected to address the PCB problem. I've been doing it for nearly 5 years. I did it by trying to bring people together. First, I met with Bob Jones and many others easily 24 times in the past 5 years. I've worked hard to get up to speed. When I was chair of the Stockbridge Select Board, I invited all 5 towns to meet together to hear Lee out. This was before the final cleanup was approved. Not a single other select board would take that meeting with Lee. Smitty called a meeting of trucks versus trains and then got called to Boston. I suggested we proceed anyway, just the 5 towns. None of the other 3 boards would meet with us. I didn't stop. I invited 4 scientists, 2 of whom work for National Institutes of Health, to meet privately with Bob and me early in the spring. They reviewed the GE filings and pointed out that GE only plans to track particle size down to 10 microns. The current science calls for 2.5 microns. We got that information because of a meeting I called with these fantastic individuals who gave us their time. We need to hold GE accountable for health outcomes. My best friend died of cancer last year. He grew up on the river. His neighbor got the same rare cancer. You don't have to wait to elect me to see leadership on PCBs. I've been doing it all along. That's why Bob Jones and Sean Renier have endorsed me in this race. Trust the leadership of Lee on PCBs. Like me, they've been in the room and have seen who shows up to lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
We need oversight, and we need it now. We need local control. We need to be able to know what's happening in the back rooms of GE and the EPA. The EPA cleanup is directed at taking 13 years of active remediation. There was a quality of life plan submitted and an off-site transportation plan submitted. We need to hold GE accountable and hold the EPA accountable and make sure that it doesn't pollute our streets, pollute our schools, and that the air is clean and that the molecules are clean and that we are actually on target with what the quality of life compliance plan is supposed to be. Just last week, the GE came back with a conditional approval, which is specifying more mitigation measures, more public road provisions, more sampling work. I've been attending the PCB Advisory Citizens Committee hearings, and I'm being actively engaged in how do we do that, in independent testing, sampling. So we need to make sure that there's oversight, and we need to make sure that we retain local control.
Thank you. Ms. Mitz?
The state rep will work closely with EPA and Mass DEP and the towns to hold GE accountable and execute the cleanup and approved work plans as prescribed. I understand it's an overwhelming amount of information, and I will continue to encourage all public comment and commentary from the towns in order to consider and weigh the concerns from everyone that everyone has in executing this permit. The town of Lenox has contracted Weston & Sampson, an engineering firm, to help us evaluate and draft comments to our select board regarding the quality of life and transportation plans as they're released from GE for comment. SKIO, an additional contractor, evaluates the planning documents and passes along evaluative comments to the 5 towns for their review and comment every time there are comments from GE or there is a plan. State and federal oversight is comprehensive. GE must comply with all the approved plans. EPA must approve all of these plans before GE executes a thing. EPA has a website with all the available information on the plans, and there's a contact listed for someone to speak with. Performance standards that EPA is setting for being safe are based on conservatively low standards for notification and action levels. The Berkshire Eagle recently had an article where Dr. David Carpenter stated that the cleanup itself is preferable to leaving the river in the condition that it is now. And even the time for disruption is preferable to doing nothing. Towns continue to press for rail transport of materials to federally licensed toxic waste disposal sites and for the lower materials to be placed in the UDF. Hydraulic pumping is also being considered for this.
Thank you, Ms. Smits. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. All right, the first of the audience questions. What 3 characteristics does a representative need to be successful in bringing Berkshire needs and issues to Boston? Ms. Davis, would you start on that one?
You need to be a listener, you need to be a collaborator, you need to be someone that brings people together and inspires them. This is something that I admire Smitty's work. He is always there for his constituents, he's always listening, he's always learning. I think the ability to be humble and to know when it's time to lean on experts and to do the research and dig in, those are the qualities that I find. Really, you know, starting with working as a legislator, it really begins with listening and taking that knowledge that you take and to enforce it and to advocate for your constituents.
Thank you. Ms. Mitz.
I would also say that listening, collaborating, and negotiating are the 3 most important skills that a state rep has. You need to listen to your constituents. You need to listen to the 18 towns that you're responsible to bring home the bacon for. If towns have a need, you need to listen and pay attention because that need has come to the forefront. You need to collaborate with 159 other members, other representatives, and believe me, there are going to be other representatives who need exactly what we need here in the Berkshires. There are 180 rural communities out there, and we all are pretty much going after the same type of stuff, equity for rural towns. You need to be able to negotiate. You need to be able to negotiate with the party faithful. You need to be able to negotiate to get things to come out to your district. That is going to be primary, and being able to communicate and work well with all of the reps is forefront in my mind.
Thank you. Mr. White.
I think you need to be able to lead, especially when the choices are tough. Not every time is it that you don't have to make hard choices. I've been leading for 40 years. I have led companies. I led in Stockbridge. I've been the chair of the Stockbridge Select Board. You need to be able to lead. You need to be informed. I work really hard to get up to speed on a wide range of issues, infrastructure issues, ambulance issues, PCB issues, how we deal with environment and climate and reconciliation with the Mohicans. There's a tremendous breadth of knowledge you have to be able to gain through listening, but also through just the sheer research that it takes to do the job. And I'll finally point out, I think, an X factor. Not that the best ideas, folks, don't always win. They don't. You know, we can all advocate for what we think is the best course of action. The fact is that relationships and contacts matter. I spent over 2 decades in senior leadership positions in Boston, all right? I have a lot of contacts there. I have a great number of relationships with business, with civic, with government leaders there. I can be effective on day one, and I want to work on your behalf to leverage those relationships to solve the problems we have here back in the Berkshires. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Minasi.
Thank you. So what I would add to everyone's comments is that you need to be able to show up and be reliable and consider all options. Have a really open mind, because you have to find the middle, to be moderate, to find solutions that might not be everyone's favorite, but they might work and solve the most people's needs. You also, as everyone said, you need to listen and work hard and network and negotiate. That is all very true, but you have to show up to be able to hear the problem and to be able to see the people and see their needs. So thank you.
Thank you. How will you develop the next generation of young leaders? Mr. White, would you start on that one?
Well, first, I'll just tell you an anecdote. I've been volunteering for the Paul Spooner Generational Leadership Awards, which is based out of Boston, and it trains the next generation of disability leaders. I've been doing that. If you go to their website, just search for Paul Spooner, you'll see my work. What they do is they take seniors who are been in the disability movement, based on a guy named Paul Spooner who passed away a couple of years ago, and they train the next generation of them. And in fact, the applicants just came in. It's great. I think you do those sorts of things. You bring together wisdom with the energy of youth. I feel really strongly that we need to invest in people, and you need to bring folks together. And I would just point out, that how we spend our time volunteering is a good indication of our commitment to an issue. And I'll just use that anecdote to tell that story. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Manassi?
Thank you. So what came to mind is how we can help young people get involved is be a good example. Just go and show volunteerism, roll up your sleeves and do hard work and don't complain. I think that's the greatest way. And maybe promote things at the high school level. Have people come to town hall, young people. But I think that's one way. Thank you.
Should I go?
Let's see. Ms. Mitz, please.
Thanks. So there's the Berkshire Leadership Program here in the Berkshires, and there's a high school program, and there's also a program for adults. That's targeted to really get people who are doing great things in the community to kind of drill down and think about becoming a municipal leader, somebody who might step into the role of planning board member, zoning board member, select board member. They train 20 people a year, at least, maybe 30. It's fantastic. It's a great program. Encouraging younger municipal employees to grow them, provide them with professional development opportunities, send them to the Mass Municipal Conferences, introduce them to their cohort throughout the state, and get them excited about the work that they're doing. And finally, encouraging everyone to get involved with their local community. If you have a passion, if you're into environmental conservation, join the Conservation Commission, join your local land trust. If your passion is housing, join your housing trust, join your community development board. But really the first step is reaching out to your town, just finding a person who's on one of those boards and saying, I'd really like to help, and get involved. It's so critical.
Thank you. And Ms. Davis?
Be the role model. Be the person that you want your kids to be. Get involved in career days. I've been participating in Monument Mountain's career days for several years now, and there's nothing like walking into a room with colleagues, and in this instance, just a month ago, working with law enforcement and the DA's office, and really talking about what it's like to lead, and to pass that knowledge on to the next generation, and to inspire them and energize them. Also volunteering. So we want to make sure that the knowledge that we have is being passed down, that we're really sowing the seeds of knowledge and making sure that we're bringing along the next generation. Schools and internships. Most of my knowledge is through the internships I've had as a teenager and working up into my 20s. So we really need to cultivate the next generation of workers and energize them and inspire them. So it's really, being the role model. People ask me, why I'm strong. I'm strong because I had to be strong. So you need to be someone that people really, really are inspired and really, believe that you have what it takes to set the standards for the next generation.
Thank you. There are two climate bills currently under consideration by the state legislature, a climate omnibus bill and a climate tech bill. Assuming that you are supportive of both bills, what are their flaws and what would you propose to address them?
Can you repeat that?
What was the second bill?
A climate tech bill, or I don't know this other part, the Mass Leads Act?
What was the last sentence, the question though?
The question is, assuming you are supportive of both bills, what are their flaws, and what would you propose to address them, the flaws? I presume this is what was meant there. Ms. Mitz, can you start that?
Sure. So as far as the solar and energy storage bill, the Commonwealth is advocating for a 25% increase in procurement of offshore wind energy, and they've just issued their 4th solicitation to date to try to get 3,600 megawatts of electricity powered by wind in the coming years. They also want to make sure that there is economic development that happens with this, that there's not destructive environmental impact, and that there's support for low-income ratepayers in this bill. They're eliminating the price cap, which would require new offshore wind projects to deliver cheaper electricity than previous ones, and this aims to discourage that particular rule by encouraging more bids and fostering economic development opportunities. And support for local communities so that there's equitable distribution of benefits, investments in manufacturing, job training for low-income minority workers, and incentives to support minority and women-owned businesses. That bill, in collaboration with the Mass Leads Act, they're pretty similar, but the capital spending and investments in infrastructure for the Mass Leads Act is very important, and it aims to target climate incentives and climate growth, specific sectors like life sciences and climate.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
So the climate omnibus bill is now in conference committee, so it's coming together as we speak. The Senate bill, had more protections for local municipalities, so that's actually one that I'm hoping that's going to really rise to the top. Some of the main points that I'm been following is that where we are now is that the omnibus bill directs the DPU to consider climate goals. And it gives the DPU the power to refuse a new customer request for gas services if adequate substitute is available, or if such service interferes with our greenhouse emissions limits. Another part of the bill is that it requires gas companies to make an annual plan for retirement, repair, or replacement of the gas distribution ecosystem. It also, currently in the bill, it creates, or it actually removes biomass from the definition of non-emitting energy for municipal light plants. And it creates guidance for recommendations of communities with public input. So what we really need to do is make sure that local control is strong, and for siting and permitting that we are on top of it. So that's really local control and siting and permitting for solar, for wind. That's what I'm really focused on, as well the climate technology that will bring money and jobs into this region.
Thank you. Ms. Minasi?
Thank you. So with both bills, I believe that lowering our emissions and energy costs for low-income people is a plus, and that anything we can do to help take the strain off people and families, especially here in the Berkshires, is a plus. That's all I have on this issue, so thank you.
Me?
Yes, Mr. White.
First of all, I'm honored to serve on the administration's Community Climate Advisory Board. I'm one of 3 members who have been appointed. The question was, what are the flaws? So before I list out about 7, I will suggest to you that this is overall a really great bill. We obviously have to green energy infrastructure. We obviously have to lower, lower carbon, sequester more carbon. They're going to gut local control. It's a priority of the governors. They're going to move the siting decisions to Boston. I don't support that. I feel like that if it takes an extra year to make sure siting decisions are the right decisions in these municipalities, we should take that extra year and do that. I think we have to keep creating incentives. We've got a whole lot of aging infrastructure and housing around here. Creating incentives to keep sealing up those homes and keeping the energy in those homes, I think is really important. Electric prices. There's talk about of separating generation from transmission. Do not let them do that. Prioritizing brownfields over forests. We should be Paul Marks suggested this. We need to prioritize placing solar where we already have fallow land rather than in our forests. And finally, we have aging infrastructure, and we need to really ensure that the money is there to invest in adding solar to every single building that can handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now ready for closing statements. You have 2 minutes for each. Ms. Mitz, would you start?
Sure.
Thank you.
So many people have asked me, why are you doing this? I'm a curious person, and I ask people what they do, where they're from, where they've traveled. I want to know what makes people tick. I want to know what people want, and if I have some knowledge as to how to get what they want, I usually share that information with them, whether they want it or not. If my husband or children tell me a frustration that they have in life or work, my first instinct is to help them fix it. I'll help them reframe their issue, to get cooperation from a friend, a colleague, or another family member. I'll suggest a place to find the person, place, or thing they desire. So troubleshooting is one of my superpowers. I want to troubleshoot for you. Send me to the legislature, and I can assure you I will be asking all of those representatives what they do, where they're from, and what makes them tick. And I am certain that there are people in the legislature representing others in the Commonwealth who want what you want. More affordable housing, cost controls on health insurance, reasonable prices on food and medication. Working collaboratively with the 159 other representatives, I will work hard to get Berkshire County much of what it wants. As your representative in Boston, it is deeply important to me to listen to you, each of you, all of you. I will bring your experience and your stories to the table so that the best decisions are made to inform and improve legislative decision making. Please, I respectfully ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Mr. White.
My name is Patrick White. I am a Democrat running to be your next state representative. I suggest you look at our record, our qualifications, our vision, and how our values align with yours. I encourage you to pick the candidate whom you believe will work the hardest, who best understands all of South County's challenges, and who has the strongest experience to lead to success. I was born here and I'll be buried here. I grew up here and lived with some of our challenges. I have seen new ones emerge. As an adult, I've worked to solve them. I have a proven history. I have lived my entire life between the Berkshires and Boston. In fact, I lived and worked in Boston where I founded companies, created jobs, made friends, and built relationships. I've written and executed business plans swiftly. I built relationships in the Berkshires and in Boston that can help me be effective from day one. As a selectman in Stockbridge, I've demonstrated my ability to address critical issues promptly. I've worked with the Stockbridge-Muncie Band of Mohicans on reconciliation efforts. I played a key role in creating our housing trust and wrote the luxury bylaw to fund it. I proposed specific measures to tackle the housing crisis. I've created jobs and know how to communicate with upcoming industries, and we need more of that in the Berkshires. Here in Lee, I've joined the fight against the PCB dump and will advocate for damage compensation for the river and for the individuals and families who've been affected by cancer that's linked to it. I am proud to have the endorsement of Select Board members Bob Jones and Sean Rednier. As a freshman in the State House, you get a cubicle in the basement and one staffer. I understand the need to be self-sufficient. With a district of 40,000 people, it is crucial to have the contacts, resources, and ability to get the job done. I have a proven track record for fighting for the Berkshires. I hope to continue to fight on your behalf in the State House. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
We all owe Representative Pignatelli a debt of gratitude for his 22 years of dedicated service. His hard work and commitment to his constituents have inspired me to run. Serving this community has been the most rewarding job I've ever had. After a comprehensive and competitive process among candidates, I'm honored to have received the endorsements from the Massachusetts Nurses Association, Progressive Mass, Service Employees International Unions Locals 1199 and 509, and just last week, Planned Parenthood. I also have received the endorsements of 4 Dalton Select Board members. It's the values of these esteemed groups, raising living wages and standards for workers, protecting the environment, advocating for social and racial justice in the workplace, and safeguarding reproductive rights that drive me to work hard to continue doing the job I love so much and I'm good at. For me, it's about the job, not the title. I'm listening and I'm here to serve you. I'm already doing the work, and I want to continue to do the work at the state level to ensure the unique needs of the cherished rural communities are a top priority in Boston. The Berkshires matter. It's my job as your next state representative to make sure that Berkshires matter in Boston. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Manassi.
Thank you. So thank you for all coming on a Saturday morning to listen. And I'm Jamie Manassi, and I would like your vote on September 3rd in the primary. And I want one thing for you to ponder. What qualities do you want in your state rep? Do you want someone who's hardworking, learns quickly, and doesn't have their own agenda? And who's objective and not emotional when making decisions? And I will have the voice of our collective district, not my own, and our district's needs in the forefront. So thank you again for spending your Saturday with us, and that's it.
Thank you. Let's give the candidates a round of applause. Thank you for coming, and if we didn't get to your question, please join us in the vestibule where you'll have a chance to talk to the candidates in person.
Thank you.